Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining AWS Workshops from Home webinar sessions. AWS Workshop from Home are a series of short webinars we're organizing for you and provided by AWS Educate. These are designed for students and educators around the world who are passionate about cloud and technology and who want to continue learning and practicing during this period of time. We planned for a series of short technical topics around AWS core services for everyone so that you could start learning and experimenting with cloud technology and create web apps and solutions in cloud environment today. For this series of webinars, we had prepared a variety of topics for you. Later on in the coming weeks, we will be covering AWS services such as Elastic Cloud Compute, virtual private cloud, and more advanced topics like today, AWS Serverless. These sessions are designed for learners at different levels. So please check out the topics that we had prepared for you. In this series of webinars, you will be following our lecturers, who are AWS solution architects and technical managers, to learn about each specific topic. For AWS Educate members, you will also have access to labs through AWS Educate to practice right after the lecturing. In your spare time, please go back to AWS Educate to enjoy the rich content we had provided for you on the platform to continue learning and practicing. We had a small announcement in the chat room as well to provide you the lab sessions for serverless just for today's topic. Please check that out. We will be opening for forum for question and answers and try to address as many questions as we can during each webinar. In the end of this session, you will be asked several questions on the next topics that you are interested to hear. And this will help us to focus on providing the topics that are most relevant to you in the highest demand. Okay, without further ado, let me introduce our main speakers today, Steve and Suresh. Steve is the solutions architect at AWS. Suresh is the technical program manager. Steve, over to you.
All right, thank you, Shang. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending this session. I'll be covering serverless today. So here's the quick agenda for today. I'll give you a quick introduction of what is serverless. Next, we'll go into a serverless architecture, and then we'll dive deeper into a service called AWS Lambda that is most commonly used in a serverless architecture. Lastly, we'll run through some use cases. How are you going to leverage serverless? So what is serverless computing? Well, serverless doesn't mean there's no server at all. What it means basically that is servers that you do not need to manage. So in the traditional environment, when you provision an instance, you have to manage and maintain and update the operating system. You have to install applications onto the platform. Then you start building and deploy the apps, and you start configuring some of the auto scaling, some load balancing, and continuously to patch and make sure the server is secure, and as well as your applications. However, in the serverless deployment and operations, all you need to take care of is to focus on building and deploy your apps and monitor and maintain and keep updating your apps. There's no other heavy lifting that you need to do. There's no patching. The server is secure for you. So all you need to do is just focus on what is most important to you, which is your applications. So what's the benefits of serverless computing? Like I said, there's no server to provision or manage at all. And it will scale with your usage. As your application grows, the number of users using your application grows, the platform itself, the backend will scale with your usage. And most importantly, when your app is not running or your code is not running, You do not have to pay for anything at all. There's no upfront payment, so you only pay for what you use. And most importantly, it is always available and it is fault tolerant for your applications. So what are some of the common use cases here? So most commonly it will be your web applications. It could be a static websites, it could be a dynamic websites. You can be leveraging on Python, on Flask, Node.js for your applications, or you just want to build a backend for your mobile applications or an IoT platform, or you are doing some data processing. It could be running a Hadoop cluster, you're running batch computing, you're doing some machine learning inferencing, as well as some real-time data processing. Or you can be building chatbots. With serverless, with AWS Lambda, you provide your chatbot with the business logic that you need. And Alexa itself is powered by serverless. The backend is basically powered by Amazon Lex. So within AWS, what are the services within the platform itself? So we have compute, as I mentioned earlier on, AWS Lambda, which is a place for you to run your code without having to manage any single server at all. We have Fargate, these are for containerized applications. For messaging, we have the queue system, we have Amazon MQ, Amazon SNS. If you want to expose your APIs, could be from your own application to third-party applications, you can expose your API through API gateway, or leveraging your AppSync allows you to quickly build APIs and pull data from multiple sources. We have step functions, we have S3 for storage, we have data analytics using Kinesis, Amazon Athena, and we have managed database as well. As such, you do not have to install a server, install a database. All you need to do is just to focus on your applications and leverage on those databases and focusing on designing your tables within the database. And lastly, we provide you a whole suite of tools from frameworks to SDKs and libraries to help you build your applications. Let's look at a serverless architecture. Here, for example, I could have a mobile application or web applications that I'm exposing to the users. I'm leveraging on Cognito user pools to authenticate the user. This is a service that you can leverage on. The service will take care of user sign up, changing password, remind password, allows you to have authenticated access to the application itself. Then you will expose your AWS Lambda functions through API gateway. Your mobile applications or your web applications is interacting with this API gateway. As such, the Lambda, for example, could be extracting data from a DynamoDB tables, which is a NoSQL database. With that, I could have sending notifications if any changes from the DynamoDB tables to inform the users of such changes. I can have static data that is stored on S3 buckets, could be files, could be videos. And with that, I can actually stream out the videos to the users through a CloudFront distributions. CloudFront basically is a content delivery network. As such, the content will be cached closest to the user to give the user the best experience. So what is Lambda? So Lambda basically just a place for you to run your code. You just need to focus on your code. You could be writing your code through the IDE that we provide you, or you can have the code developed on your machine, zip it up and upload to Lambda. So what it does basically, if something triggers Lambda, the code will run. And only that point in time, you will be charged for the code and for how long it is run. So to use Lambda, basically you're just writing your own code. You could be writing in Node.js, in Java, Python, C#, .NET Core, Ruby. You can bring in your custom runtimes, your own libraries as well. It's very flexible to use. You can use to integrate with other AWS services. and you decide in terms of how much power that you are going to use, because you'll be charged based on the compute and the RAM that you are going to use. And lastly, you can have a secure access to other resources that's running in a virtual private cloud. So to author the function itself, there are many different ways. Like I said, there's an editor that's provided to you in the console. You could be leveraging on our AWS Cloud9 IDE. This is basically our online integrated development editor. Or you can use third-party plugins. It could be Visual Studio, it could be Eclipse for Java applications, or Python with PyCharm. We provide you many ways to monitor your applications as well, with regards to how much is the request to your applications, is your application being throttled, or if there's any errors being thrown out from your applications. And you can stream the logs to Amazon CloudWatch. To trace your applications, we have AWS X-Ray. As such, you can actually debug your application in terms of which line of code is basically taking the longest time to run and it's not as performant as you think. And lastly, it is stateless. Basically, it doesn't store anything on the machines. Everything is outside. With that, we are able to scale as your application usage grows. But Lambda doesn't run by itself, so it requires some triggers. Triggers, basically, something happens to certain services, it will trigger the Lambda function to run. Could be from DynamoDB, from S3. So these are a whole suite of services that can trigger a AWS Lambda function to run. So for example, if someone drop a file into an Amazon S3 bucket, I could have a trigger that call a Lambda function to do certain actions. So for example, I want to create a thumbnail of an image that is dropped onto a bucket. As such, I can have a Lambda function that do resizing of the image to become a thumbnail. So another use cases is basically to leverage on the AWS SDKs and have those SDKs being loaded into AWS Lambda. As such, you can call any AWS services through APIs. And last but not least, you can have a DynamoDB table that will trigger a Lambda functions. So for example, I have certain partitions or tables in the DynamoDB. As long as certain item changes, whether it's created, is deleted, or is modified, I can trigger a Lambda function to perform certain actions. So it is guaranteed to run at least once. So you have the confidence that anything happens to the DynamoDB tables, you will know that your Lambda code will run. So with that, thank you very much. And I will hand over to Suresh for a quick demo of AWS Lambda.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, everyone. So I will be sharing with you an AWS Lambda example. Now, in this example, what we are going to show is a situation where someone uploads files into S3 buckets, and every time they upload a file into S3 bucket, they're going to get information about what type of file it was. Was it an image file? Was it a document? Is it a JPG file? Is it a PNG file, or a doc file, XLS, etc. Right? So this is just a simple example to share with you about what happens when we are using event-based processing on Lambda. Right? So without further ado, let me start the process. Right now, I am on my Lambda screen. You can get there through services and type Lambda and get there. So when you get to your dashboard, there's an option there that says create function. Go ahead and click on it. Now, when you create a function, there are three options. You can do something from scratch, something like a simple hello world example, choose your runtimes. So as you can see, Node, JS, Python, Ruby, .NET Core, Java, etc. All of this are possible languages you can run off this, C# included. Now, the other options you have is to use templates, or what we call blueprints. So they give you certain codes already in place, and it makes it a little bit faster for you to start developing the code that you want to run as a result of an event trigger. And lastly, you have browse serverless, which is basically browsing through fully created Lambda applications, which can pretty much be deployed straight away, right? So we've got three different options. Now for this example, I'm going to make use of a blueprint to share with you a situation where just by someone uploading an S3 file into a particular bucket, they're informed about the type of file it is, right? So let me just do that. I'm going to search for blueprint right now. I'm going to type S3, right, which is our storage service. I'm going to choose S3 get object Python here. I'm going to click on that. And right at the bottom, I'm going to click on configure. Okay, and now I'm going to give that function a name. All right, so let's just call this S3 file upload trigger, perhaps, right? So let's just call that. Now, you've also got to give it some permissions. You have a few options. You can create a new role with basic permissions. You can use an existing role which you may have pre-created, right? But for this example, I'm going to use this with existing policy templates. So let me explain why. Now, a while ago, I just said this Lambda function is going to execute as a result of an S3 bucket file having some file uploads into it. Now, in order for Lambda to do that, it needs to have permissions to read the S3 bucket. So if you notice right at the bottom there's an option that says Amazon S3 object read only permissions. So you at least want permissions like that to go. So I would recommend in this kind of scenario where you're straight away picking a template, always choose the predefined option because they have the option there, or go and create a role in advance before you come in here, so you can choose an existing role. If you try to create a new role with basic Lambda permissions, you probably got to come back in again one more time, and then reconfigure that role with S3 permissions as well. So my recommendation, choose option 2 or option 3 so they can get going straight away, right? So I'm going to call this role as S3 Lambda access. Okay, I'm going to create a new role. I'm not going to add in any more new templates. The bucket I'm interested in, so this is basically the S3 bucket in which I'm going to upload files so that it will trigger changes. I'm going to pick serverless lab APAC here. So this is the bucket where I'm going to upload files into, right? And this is the type of events. So I'm going to say any type of creation event I want the Lambda function to execute, right? So I'm going to say all object create events. I'm not going to go into any subdirectories, and I'm not limiting it to only particular file types. I want to know every single file type that comes in, right? So I'm going to not put in any suffix here as well. And lastly, I am in this example, I'm going to enable the trigger, right? So because we're going to straight away deploy this, but if you're going to test it, always do not click enable trigger. You can always do it later, uncheck it, test it first, and then enable it. Now, lastly, the actual function code that's already pre-created. I won't go through too much into the code except to share two parts to it, right? So one, all it's doing is it's actually returning a response on the content type. So if you see line 18 there, that's what it's doing, right? So it's Python code. And then line 20 onwards is if it can't read the file or for whatever reason the permissions are not set correctly, it's going to throw an exception error. So this will actually be captured in your CloudWatch logs, right? So that's it. With that, I'm going to go ahead and create the function right now. Okay. While that is going on, okay, there is an error. It's probably a simple error. Let me just do that again. I'm going to do this very quickly. Okay, here we go. Okay, give me a second. Seems to be an error here, which is unexpected. I may have been logged out. I'm going to stop sharing for a bit. Okay, I'm going to show screen again. Let's give it a go again. So same thing. I'm going to say S3 trigger. Use a blueprint. S3. Let's choose Python. Let's configure that again. Okay. Okay, fine. There is something going wrong here, but very quickly, let me just show you another example of this. Okay, so since this is not turning out pretty well, so let's just use a hello world function. So I'm going to go for a hello world function, and I'm just going to say, yep, Python 3.6. I'm going to create a simple hello world function so that you can see a trigger that's actually working. Okay, now this is simply a situation where every time I trigger, it's going to release a hello from Lambda function here. And I'm going to create a test scenario just to show how that's executed when I trigger this. Okay, so let's do that. Let's configure a test event. So the last value, I'm going to say hello from Lambda and create that function. Hello world. All right, so I'm going to do a test run right now. So very quickly, you can see the execution results. When I ran the test result on Lambda, every time I triggered something, it's returning a status code saying it's successful and there's a hello from Lambda. All right, so that's pretty much an example. This is actually provided in lab guides as well. Unfortunately, we are having some errors here. I couldn't show you a full example where after the S3 file is uploaded, you get to see a trigger, right? So apologies for that. We will actually be able to share with you a full video of a working one soon, right, after this session. Okay, with that, I will hand it over to Sheng to take questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Suresh. There was a bit of error at the last. Suresh, sorry, can you show your screen for the last 2 minutes of your demo? The screen was not showing for the audience. Thank you.
Sorry, Sheng. You were saying that they couldn't see this part again?
Yeah, just the last 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes of the screen.
Right. So what I did was I did a hello world trigger here, as you can see. So as opposed to an S3, all I'm trying to do is create a test scenario where I provide a set of information and it's triggered successfully. So this is the test scenario. Let me just show you again. So the test scenario I've given is, okay, key one, firstly, it's not going to, it's value 1, value 2, but the final one is a hello from Lambda a value with a test event like this. And then when I do a test run, right, against this trigger, or rather against the function, it will release a successful response saying hello from Lambda. So it's basically telling you that your trigger was successful, the function is executed, right? So that's what was happening here. Okay, that would be it, Sheng.
Thank you. So we will be opening for question and answers. We have been answering some of your questions from the audience. So in case if we do not have time to address all the questions that you had raised today, please do get involved and stay in touch with us. Here are lots of useful links for staying in contact with us. At the top left, these are the links we have announced just now to sign up for AWS Educate. There is a promotion code associated with these links. And then AWS Educate support, in case if you have any technical issues signing up for AWS Educate, you can raise those questions and get in touch with our customer service through AWS Educate support. The hands-on lab for today for serverless is the third one with Lambda Lab. There are other resources such as AWS blogs, AWS documentation, official YouTube channel, and user groups, as well as a LinkedIn APAC region community for you to stay in contact with us. So there are lots of rich content or online communities for you to stay in connection with us. So for those questions that we cannot address today, please do stay in contact with us. Some of you still asked about this morning session, receiving certificates and recording. Please be patient. We will be sending emails to you after today's session with both the certificate as well as the link to the recording of both morning and afternoon session today, so that you can revisit. Some of you ask about, whether you can come back to retrieve some of the sessions we had offered in the past. There are two ways. Number one is you can look at the recording. If you had signed up for a session and you missed it, the recording link will be sent to you via email. You'll be receiving that in your email. The second way is come back to check the web page. That is AWS Workshop from Home. The web page that I copy and pasted to everyone in the chat room. Do come back to see AWS Workshop from Home. We will be actually offering the sessions that we had offered before for those of you who wanted to attend the webinar but couldn't. Okay. All right. So I'll pass it on to Steve to answer some of the technical questions.
So I think one of the questions that we have got basically is is there a limit in terms of how long a Lambda function can run? So a Lambda function can run up to a maximum of 15 minutes. So you have any code that is running longer than 15 minutes, then Lambda is not suitable to run your code. Next question will be, is the Lambda function bounded by some compute capacity? As you can see earlier on in the demo itself, when you create a Lambda function, basically you do not specify the compute capacity, but rather the memory allocation that your code requires to run. So with that, I'll pass it on to Suresh.
Yep. So there's one common confusion that often arises when dealing with Lambda, which is people are asking, look, you're using Lambda for serverless and you've got containers. What do I use for what, right? So what's the difference? So this is how you should look at it, right? So containers, right, are ideal for an app like, say, a large e-commerce website. So this site contains many parts like, product listings, inventory management, payment processing, and then you can use containers to actually package each of these services without worrying about time limits or memory issues, right? Because it's going to be continually running. Now, serverless though is best applied for apps where you're not ready to perform the task, but you all and you don't need it to be always running. You only want it to occur when an event occurs. So an example is if you have an IoT application that's running, and all it does is every time it detects a presence of water, right, to identify a leak in water storage facility. So the app doesn't have to run all the time, but every time it detects, right, a leak in water, it's then going to trigger a process to inform you about it, right? So that's when you put in serverless, so you don't have it running all the time. So this would probably be a good explanation as to when you use containers and when you use serverless, right? So that's yep, that's it from me. I'll hand it over to Sheng.
Hi, thank you, Suresh. Yeah, so there are still questions about certificate. Please pay attention when we answer those questions. So the certificates will be emailed to you after each session. Once you finish attending this webinar session, you will receive the certificate as well as the link to the recording of each session. The next upcoming session, if you check this web page, so we have finished serverless computing, right? So there is a Cloud 101, which will start on April 16th, and that's 3 p.m. GMT, so that's London time. If you register, you'll be able to see the time zone in your area. So this will be offered, and then there will be offered another on-demand sessions such as RDS, AWS Educate Classroom, so on and so forth. On demand just means that it will be rolling 24/7. So you don't need to wake up at a certain time to join these sessions. These will be on a rolling basis, and you can join the webinar session. You can watch on demand anytime you want. Okay. The certificate looks something like this. You will be receiving this after today's session. Please do check your email and check the thank you email for joining today's webinar. Okay. All right, I will pass back on to Steve to answer more technical questions.
So I have another question here. If Lambda can be used to monitor GitHub changes? No. As you can see, a lot of the triggers is still basically our services. Could be S3, could be a DynamoDB, an external service, unless you have certain kind of webhook that can call an API, and the API is backed by a Lambda function. If you are looking at based on some of GitHub changes, I think another service that you'll be looking on is basically code build. AWS code build as such has integration with GitHub. If any GitHub code changes, it will trigger code build, and then it will build the application itself and store the code into, could be a binary into an S3. And I do not have any other question right now. So as you have.
Yeah, so I heard a question earlier. I think, well, I saw a question earlier about, you know, where I mean, can we keep in the log? So I think I was going to show that in the example. Can I just quickly get that presenter mode on, because I think I've got it working. Let me just show this finish to the students. Yeah, thank you. Right, and educators. All right, so this earlier we had a mini error, so we couldn't go on beyond that. So if you notice, when I created a Lambda function, something went wrong, nothing could be created. It's due to some permissions. It's on now. So you can now see the trigger here. The trigger here is S3. We can add more triggers, as what Steve was saying, right? So you can add GitHub. You can add lots of different triggers. If you click add trigger, you do a drop down. Well, GitHub can't be added, sorry. But there's other triggers here. If you want external triggers, there's things like from you know, single sign-on applications like Auth0, Datadog, MongoDB, etc., but not GitHub, right? But effectively, you can actually add triggers here. It will execute a function and then do that. So let's go back to that example again. So earlier I tried to create an example where every time a file is uploaded into the S3 bucket, in the log files, it will actually then publish the type of file it was, right? So let's try that now. So I've created a function here. So this is my S3 bucket. Okay, so let's drag a file into here. I'm just going to drag a PNG file, image file in here very quickly. You can see that. I'm going to upload the file into S3. Okay, so successful. So let's now go into CloudWatch logs and find that file. Let me just refresh and find my function. Okay, so this is the function I create. So Suresh 9100, that's the Lambda function. Again, to refresh on the tab, you can see that's the function I created. So let's go ahead and click on that. Let's click on the log files. And you can see here right now, the content type file is generated here, right? So it's informing me that the file that was uploaded was an image file /png, right? So this will happen for any type of file that you upload in there. So that's a full execution of a Lambda function that I was trying to demonstrate. And it also answers some of the questions you were asking, that can I actually capture this in CloudWatch logs? Yes, we can, right? So you just saw a demo of it. So that's it. I think I'll hand this back to Shang again for further questions.
Okay, thank you. Let me copy and paste the message that I have shared before. Okay. Okay. Some of you still ask me to copy and paste the link. So please see the screen. If you're looking for the lab is right here, Lambda lab, and additional resources are listed all in here. Some of you still said that they haven't received the certificate. I will take note of that, and we'll get back to you for the certificate. The organizers, Andrew and Alex, please do pay attention to the students who have raised such concerns. And apologies for not being able to have you have the certificate when you need them. We're working on that. For technical issues about that, we do apologize. So I think we are approaching time. Unless Steve and Felix, is there any other technical questions about serverless that you would like to answer? Suresh? Okay.
Nope.
All right.
No further questions.
Okay, thank you. So stay connected with us, get involved in the user group. There will be quite a lot of discussion if you raise a question about serverless. For next week, please check back the schedule of our webinar release. From APJ region, from Asia Pacific region, next week we do not have webinars, but the webinars will be resumed after week after next. And the reason for that is, we have launched 5 webinars from Asia Pac region, and we have received really good feedback and advice from you guys. And so we wanted to consolidate and organize all of the feedback from you guys and structure the next wave of webinar topics and offer to you during the week after. So don't worry if you have missed 1 or 2 webinars that you were interested in. Most likely these topics will be reissued or released again in the coming weeks. And the pandemic is not allowing us to, most of us, to go to school. So we understand that we will be offering more webinars in the upcoming weeks, and this will not be a temporary solution. We will continue to run webinars like this in the upcoming months. So do not worry if you have missed 1 or 2 sessions. In the upcoming weeks, we're also considering topics that are more interesting. For example, we will invite teams from startup team to give us a session. We'll also invite people from Deep Racer, RoboMaker, lots of thematic kind of topics for you guys. Instead of pure just AWS function or infrastructure topics for you. So we try to make it as more relevant, as much as interesting to provide to you guys. Okay, so without further ado, I will close this session. Please pay attention in the end of the session. Once you click exit, you will be having a screen with a pop-up questions to ask you what are the topics that are most interested to you. And that will help us to organize the next wave of topics that we want to offer. So that will be very useful and helpful information to us. So please do take some time to answer those questions in the end. You won't see them now, but then once you click exit the webinar, you will be able to see the questions. So it's a three short survey questions that will probably take you like 10, 20 seconds to answer, which will be really important and helpful to us. Okay. All right. So stay connected with us and we'll come back soon. Thank you so much for your attention and time today. Bye, everyone. Take care.